What's up, folks? Today I'll show you a horror thriller film, Audition. Spoiler ahead, be careful and take care. The movie starts with a youthful boy energetically strolling in a clinic hallway. He is carrying a gift and a get well soon card for his mother. He hasn't been seeing much of her ever since she got sick, but the boy still believes that she will be alright. What the boy does not know is that his mother's condition is exceptionally serious and she is already on her deathbed. In the hospital room with her are her specialist and her spouse, Haru. The doctor's terrible confirmation affirms that her passing won't be long now. Soon enough, she closes her eyes and drifts away. The specialist declares her time of passing and leaves the room to let Haru grieve in private. He turns and sees his child at the door, inquisitively looking at his mother's inert body. At a youthful age, the child still can't comprehend that people can pass on rather like that. Haru just looks at his child with pitiful eyes. A long time passes, and the father and child grow closer and help each other in their grief. They live a basic life and are content with just having each other. They go fishing one morning and after that cook what they capture for supper that night. While eating, the child brings up out of the blue the possibility of his father getting remarried. Because it's been a long time since his mother had died, he considers it's time for his father to get back into dating. Haru hasn't thought of being with another lady since his wife, so he is a bit shocked by his son's suggestion. The next day, he is clearing out the office. His secretary comes up to him and declares that she's getting hitched soon. He fumblingly tells her congrats, and she appears to be disappointed in his reaction. At a hotel bar, he meets up with his filmmaker friend. He tells him that he intends to wed once more, having been persuaded by his son. But Haru doesn't just want an arranged marriage. He needs to meet a decent lady with hobbies, and perhaps even a job. He moreover includes that he will be picky, and select his perfect lady out of a few candidates. This gives the maker the thought to hold a fake tryout for a sentiment film. What the young ladies will not know is that they are trying out to be Haru's wife. He plans to shoot the complete process and make a documentary out of it. The maker clarifies that out of the shortlisted girls, they will be able to choose a well-mannered and alluring youthful lady who will fit the charge nicely. It isn't long before lots of youthful yearning actresses send their resumes and pictures to audition. Haru flips through all of them, attempting to see which one would be a great match. While looking at the papers, he happens to look at the surrounding photo of his wife. He feels blameworthy and turns the photo away. The child at that point barges inside the room, and his father scrambles to cover up the women's photos. The boy invites him to eat supper with him, and he modestly says that he has a female visitor coming over. Haru is upbeat for his child and tells him to deliver his parcel of the supper to his guest. After the child takes off, he turns his consideration back to the resumes, and clumsily spills a bit of tea on one of them. He pulls it out of the pile, and closely looks at the dazzling youthful lady within the picture, named Asami. He reads her essay, which significantly talks around her fizzled yearnings to be a proficient expressive dancer, and her considerations around life and death. The enthusiastic profundity in her words convinces Haru to waitlist Asami. Haru afterward goes out to the living room, where he meets his son's crush. So, he walks their dog outside, attempting to give his child some privacy. A week afterward, he and the maker held the auditions. Haru states his apprehension at utilizing misleading strategies to find a wife, but they continue anyway. One by one, the 30 shortlisted young ladies file in, and sit on a chair in the center of the open room. The maker would at that point start asking them an arrangement of questions that would run from inquiring why they tried out to individual inquiries about their sex lives. The young ladies would too exhibit their talents, such as moving or bat and twirling. Some of them are modest, whereas a few of them are greatly confident. One young lady indeed disrobes and stands before the two men in bikini. Haru steps out for a washroom break, and he sees Asami among the other candidates. Finally, she is called and strolls the interior in her striking all-white outfit. She promptly answers all of the producer's questions about her recent employment, but Haru is not paying attention. He is besotted by her beauty. For the first time, he takes control and inquires her about her essay on life and death and her ballet training. It turns out that she trained to be a professional ballet dancer, but an injury prevented her from fulfilling her dream. In her writing, she compares not being able to live one's dream to being dead. Haru is inspired by her looks and brains. However, the producer isn't sold that she's the young lady they're looking for. She tells them that she works in a record store, making fair enough for a comfortable life, but she isn't ambitious to begin with. Now sure that he wants Asami, Haru calls her that night and asks to see her again. She readily agrees, and they make plans to meet. A few seconds after their call closes, the producer calls and informs Haru that he tried calling all the work references that Asami provided in her resume, but none of them answered. One of them has indeed been lost for a year. Haru dismisses his friend's concerns and still goes ahead with meeting Asami again, eager to have her alone. They meet in another hotel and share a meal. He inquires her about the references she put in her application, and she nervously reveals that all the past employers she cited are fake. She had been nervous about auditioning without much experience, so she lied to them. Haru believes everything she said and leaves Asami with his calling card with his phone number, but the maker continues to doubt her and offers with his friend that he couldn't even reach his current employer she stated in her application. No one knows who Asami is, and this bothers the producer, so he advises Haru to watch out with her since she is hiding something. Haru promises that he won't call Asami, but she is on his mind from now on. He dreams of his dead spouse, and even takes a day off from work, just thinking about Asami. Even his maid starts being concerned about his melancholia. Meanwhile, Asami just sits without moving by telephone in her small, threadbare apartment, while waiting for Haru to call her. There is a huge cloth sack lying beside the telephone. She does nothing as days pass, and when the phone at last rings, she smiles. The two meets for dinner, and she wears a colossal and lavish pink fur coat. He asks her about her family's whereabouts, and she answers that her parents are in another province. Haru then inquires her about her current work at a certain bar, and she confirms that she is still working there. He insinuates that he wants to visit her there, but she says that her boss is nosy and interferes in her private life. Finally, Haru lies to her and says that the movie she was trying out for fell through, and they wouldn't be going into production anymore. Asami takes it all in stride, and nervously confesses that she's just happy that she got to meet him, because he is the only individual who gets it who she is. The child notices the positive change in his father's demeanor and is happy that he has found someone. The father confides that he plans on proposing to Asami during their weekend getaway in an oceanside hotel. The child gives him his blessing, and his father smiles. After grieving his spouse for so long, he is now prepared to open his heart again. Before he ends their discussion, he promises to introduce Asami to his child soon. The child half-jokingly says that he will assess if she is the right person for his father once he meets her, since his father is blinded by his feelings. The couple meets as planned, but Asami isn't talking much during their stay. He jabbers almost a nice restaurant they can go to for dinner, but she just wordlessly turns off the light in the room and removes her long white dress and underclothes. She then climbs under the bed covers and invites Haru to join her. He obeys, and when he approaches the bed, Asami slowly climbs up the cover, covering her legs, and shows him her burned scars. She tells him that she burnt herself when she was little, and she is now showing him everything, even the ugly parts of her, because she wants Haru to know her more. With a shaking voice, she argues with him to love her and only her. Other men had told her the same thing before, but they didn't mean it. Without saying anything, he climbs into bed with her, and they make love. Afterward, Haru wakes up to an empty bed and a ringing telephone. He answers it and hears the hotel receptionist on the other line. He informs Haru that Asami has left the hotel, and he needs to confirm if he will be remaining the entire weekend. Haru dejectedly comes home to the city and tells the producer that Asami has disappeared. He does not know why, and she isn't picking up her phone. His friend tells him that his hunch about Asami is right, and that he should just forget about her. Haru is heartbroken like a teenager, and he does not want to move on from her, despite the producer belittling his feelings. He is resolved to find Asami, since he believes that there's a clarification behind her mysterious disappearance. He rereads her essay and notices the name of the ballet studio, where she was trained. Haru goes to the studio, but it initially looks run down and abandoned. He pries open the door and sees a man in a wheelchair playing the piano. He is the owner of the ballet studio. The owner slowly turns his wheelchair and laughs humorlessly when Haru asks him about Asami. It is then uncovered in a flashback that it was the owner who burned Asami when she was a young child training at his studio. He had also abused her. The owner at that point stands up and shows Haru that his legs were cut off, and he is now wearing prosthetics, inferring that Asami was involved in his amputation. Haru decides to go to the bar, where Asami has said she works. Just like the studio, the bar is closed down. A man tells him that the bar closed a year prior, due to the owner being murdered. He also adds that when the police found the body, there were 3 extra fingers, and an extra ear and tongue found as well. Haru is so horrified by the story, that he hallucinates the mutilated body parts. Meanwhile, Asami sneaks into Haru's house. She gets angry upon seeing a picture of his dead spouse and drugs the liquor in his decanter. After a few hours, he comes home and pours himself a glass of liquor from the same decanter. His child is staying at a friend's house that night, so he thinks he's alone, not knowing that Asami is hiding somewhere. The drug starts to affect him, and he eventually collapses. Another flashback uncovers that during one of their dates, Asami shared that she was sent to live with her uncle in the aftermath of her parents' divorce. She was physically abused by his uncle's spouse and was even pushed down the stairs. After a doctor guessed that she was being abused, she was sent back to her mother's house. But her mother married another man, who was an abuser as well. While under the influence of the drugs, the flashbacks dissolve into a dream, where he and Asami are eating in a restaurant. She shares that ballet helped her adapt to her agonizing past and that it filtered her dark side. Suddenly, Haru sees his dead spouse and the younger version of his child sitting at the next table. He introduces her to Asami, but his spouse tells him that she isn't good for him. Another dream starts this time. Haru is in Asami's flat, and she shows up and kneels before him to pleasure him. He refuses her advances, and she turns into his secretary, who tells him that after they slept together, she expected that he would want to be in a relationship with her, but he didn't and tried to run away from her. She later turns into his son's crush, but he subconsciously tried to ignore that at the beginning when the child brought her home. Right then, the girl disappears, and Haru notices a huge sack at the end of the hallway. The sack moves, and a naked man emerges. His legs are stumps, and his ear, 3 fingers, and tongue are missing. This is intensely implied to be the man, whose body parts were found with the body of the club owner, and the man is likely someone from Asami's past. The naked man begs for food, and Asami vomits into a dog bowl, and he eats it. Haru then imagines that Asami goes back to the ballet studio to decapitate the owner with a wire. He then wakes up paralyzed on the floor of his study. Asami is wearing leather gloves and an apron, and she fills a syringe with more paralytic drugs. She sticks the needle into his tongue, so he can be paralyzed, while still feeling the pain she will inflict on him. She pulls out a few acupuncture needles and sticks them one by one to torment him. While doing this, she explains that he is a liar, since he said he would cherish only her, but the truth is that he loves his child and his dead spouse, and she will not tolerate that. She at that point brandishes the same wire he saw in his dream and saws off his foot slowly. The child suddenly returns home and stumbles upon his father. Asami comes up behind him, holding a spray. Haru wakes up, and he is suddenly back at the Oceanside Hotel, where he stayed with Asami previously, but this time, Asami is sleeping next to him, and both of his feet are still intact. She accepts his marriage proposal and cuddles up to him in bed. He closes his eyes and drifts off to sleep. At this point, it is apparent that Haru is an unreliable narrator, and that his subconscious and reality can often blur together, with numerous events taking place in a chaotic time order, possibly since of his being drugged and the endless torment by Asami for a long time. Therefore, his perspective of Asami all through the film swings from one extreme to the other. She is either an easygoing and blameless young lady who can be the perfect wife, or an insane love-obsessed woman. He accepts that Asami's abusive childhood made her into a killer. Tired of being the casualty, she sanctions exact retribution on the men in her life who took advantage of her, starting with the ballet studio owner who molested her. He is presently back at home again, and his child is fighting Asami, after finding the father bleeding out. The child runs up the stairs, and Asami chases him, but he kicks her downstairs, and she breaks her neck. The child calls the police, and the movie ends as Haru lies on the floor and gazes at a dying Asami, who repeats what she said during one of their dates, about being excited to see him once more. If you would like to see movies in Flash with us, then subscribe to our channel and support us for more content. Till then, stay haunted, my friends.